Please stand by. We're having technical.
Mr. Chair, I believe, let's check to make sure folks online can hear us all right. That's good. Mr. Chair, your meeting is ready, I think.
All right, well, we'll call this meeting to order. I'm going to do a quick roll call. Jody, we've got.
Sure. Tom?
Yep.
Jeremy Battle?
Here.
Joy Goodwin?
Here.
Chris Keys? Chris,
She's
are you
waving.
there?
She's
Are
waving.
you-
Yep, she's
okay.
waving. Yep.
Brett Moore?
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay. Dave? I'm here.
All right, great, super. Entertain a motion to approve our minutes.
I just sent out the recap,
Okay, so do we
so
want
you
to
can
wait?
see what it looks like.
I did not see that recap.
Did Chris send out actual minutes though, too? Or-
I think I did, yes.
Okay.
You want to compare them?
I just, I wanted to show, I just sent out the AI summary, so you can take a look at what they'll look like. And I can send out that AI summary as soon as, like, the day after we have the meeting to you, Chris, so you can make them look pretty if you want, or add a header or add the date to it, that type of stuff.
So do we want to push approval of the minutes to the next meeting to,
If she sent them out,
then we're okay with that?
then we're okay. We can just
Okay.
approve Chris's. So.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Anybody want to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
One second, sorry.
I'm not voting.
Moved in second, all
Sorry.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great,
Aye.
thank you. All right, update on resort tax expenditures and revenue. And so I don't know what we've lost our, we're having some technical difficulties, so. I will just go into a couple of things quickly based on what's posted on the city website. But I did talk to Danae today about the updates on the quarterlies, and I was actually a little confused as to where the most up-to-date ones are filed, and they're under budget. And then under budget, you do budget with quarterly review, and then you click on budget quarterly review, and then there's a resort tax section, and then there is resort tax collections. So that's just where it's located on the city website. So we did so that is posted. It's posted on the website. What we're showing is about a 22% decrease in resort tax collections right now for fourth quarter of last year. I'm hoping that is due to some just collection discrepancies that we haven't recorded yet. I think that seems extreme based on what I know from city business, so I'm hoping that's not accurate.
Bill indicated that his report showed about that 23%, and he said that's because it was the numbers from like the first week in February.
Yeah.
That's the one, so.
Yeah, so.
I'm not sure if that's the one that got inked by the printer. I was gonna compare it to see.
So when you're saying the fourth quarter, you mean October, November, and December?
I can share this too, so we can
Okay.
just, unless you.
Hold on, let me make you, sorry. Oh, you're not on. Yeah.
Have
Just a heads up for everybody else, what happened is, the office sent out some reports today to everybody, and I am making hard copies of them, and it just didn't want to come out on the first pass.
so. Move down.
Whoa, hold on. Let me, at the last minute, I ended up making duty of co-host, that's all.
Okay, you ready?
Whenever you are, sir. Yeah. Is this one the one you're printing, Tom?
No, not right now. Okay, so this is the standard form that Danae does, and it shows, and I'm going to talk about this because I think it is significant. We kind of have two forms that get put out there. One is the one that Danae produces, and then as a result of what Danae produces, Bill Foisey goes in and produces another report that gets published. And in my mind, that report that Bill does is now become a little confusing because what he was doing is translating the resort tax categories that we used to have.
Oh.
And so everything, his numbers don't match with the official numbers. And so, but here is what those numbers look like. That's helpful to zoom in for this quarter. You can see, I mean, I'll zoom out just a little bit so you can see the difference between last quarter and this quarter. But the so there's just it shows a slight decrease, but you can look at the July, August, September quarter, and you can see that we were up in total and in, I believe, in most of the categories. So we continue to see normal increases, but this one quarter is showing down, which is not typical. So we just need to.
So did you ask?
We're going to find out about it.
Okay,
I don't know.
because we have
This is
people
just,
outstanding
yeah, so
that have
part of the problem is that this is just, we're pretty new in the information, so we'll find out the information and we'll update
It
you
was
next
due
time.
January 20th.
Yes, I know.
And a lot of people wait 30 days to
Yes.
make the payment.
Yes, they do. Yes, yep. So we'll see if we just are waiting for some more payments. So we'll give you, well, basically update you
Don't panic.
on,
yet.
I would not panic yet on that right now. Let me get this up before I share this again, Dave. And then, apologize for the delay here. I have too many email accounts.
Try not to log yourself out of all of them. It's really hard to get back in.
Yes.
I just did that today.
Okay.
Do a print one for that.
So I recommend this as a
I'm going to put these down here by you guys and hand them out as you speak to them. So
Okay.
the first three, if this is only one of them, the other two got eaten by the printer, is the three that the office sent out this morning, which is what Tom puts into his spreadsheet. So. And the chance that any of them came up, I'm printing them.
All right, so, I mean, just basically, so just for everyone, there's two different ways that we record resort tax revenue. One of them is that we record it based on collections in a certain quarter, and then the other one is we record it based on cash received. So money that we receive in January gets recorded as cash coming into the city in January, but it gets recorded also as resort tax collected by the businesses in October, November, and December. So there's two different ways that things get reported. One is kind of on a cash basis, and the other is on an accrual basis. So sometimes you'll see different numbers for resort tax revenue that don't match based on which version of resort tax revenue that we're doing. So when we talk about budgets and expenditures, we're actually looking at cash, but we also monitor resort tax revenue based on when that revenue is actually incurred by the businesses. So we have an understanding of what's being collected and when it's being collected. So just two different ways that happens. This form that I'm showing right now deals with actual cash being received as well as actual expenditures. So for the year so far, we're at, well, about 1.645 million receipts. That does include, that's the actual total 4%. So 400,000 of that is dedicated to stormwater improvements. So that goes into the stormwater fund. And then 1.2 million of that is for the 3%. So, you know, as a resort tax committee or even as the city doesn't have any flexibility on that 1% because it is a project. We have the ability to levy two kinds of resort tax, a 3% that we have general use of, and then we have a 1% project. Our 1% project is stormwater, and that 1% will continue until that project is completed, and then it goes away unless we pass another 1% project, okay?
By we, the voters.
We as the people, not we as, yes, that is correct. This form that I build, this is my personal note kind of form that I share with the Resort Tax Committee, and I take the documents the city produces and I put it in this because it's much easier to understand and I can produce graphs from it. And I think there's two in here that I want to show quickly, but this kind of shows since we did the resort tax renewal, this graph shows where primarily our resort tax gets spent. About 659,000 went to direct property tax relief, 3.2 million to water and sewer, which includes storm sewer, about 1.5 to snow plowing and streets, 1.4 to parks and recreation, 324,000 to law enforcement, nothing to fire protection, and 105,000 to admin. You can two different ways of showing that. One's in a pie graph and the other's. Anybody have any questions on that?
Do I need to print more copies of that colorful spreadsheet?
No.
You got it, ma'am.
I'm just going to stop broadcasting while I pull this up here. I've got one other one that I went through and updated. Sorry about the dead space here.
Not a radio station.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Dave, I'll send you a copy of this chart as well. So, and then I went through and updated, this is total resort tax expenditure. So when we look at the life of the resort tax, we have about $20 million in expenditures. And this just gives you kind of an idea of how the breakout of resort tax expenditures have been. About $2.6 million to direct property relief. Almost $10 million has gone to water and sewer, about 4.2 to streets, and 2.5 to Parks and Rec, $20,000 to fire, $748,000 to law enforcement. And then there's two categories here, city admin and merchant admin, $258,000 to city admin and $667 to merchant admin. Neither of those exist and have not existed for the last 5 years. So we used to give the merchants, and the city got a percentage of the resort tax to manage that process. Part of the move when we did the resort tax renewal was to put more money into projects like the pool and into park projects, and the merchants gave up their percentage of the money in order to have more money available for things that helped downtown businesses, helped increase businesses, did things like that. So that's a significant piece of money and exists there. So, questions? Chris or Brent, do you have any questions? Is that showing online okay? Yeah. Super.
You guys have a question on the two different pie charts? I think I
No,
heard
yeah,
something about it.
yes, but what's?
One shows more detail.
It's just broken out a little bit more.
Yeah, so it's just more categories. They're the same total data, but we basically lump it into these kind of like general categories of water and sewer, streets, parks and pool, fire, law enforcement. So those are kind of our general categories based on what the authorizing ordinance allows. And so we have some more detail in that. We break out pool from parks and some of those kinds of things. So that the tighter one it's just a kind of a bigger overview is all.
Do you have the ability to email that to me really quick so I can get it to folks in this meeting?
No, I don't.
I can.
All right. Any more questions, comments there?
So, yes, quite quick. So the annual by year is over there on the left-hand side above the left pie chart. Which is an annual.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yep. So the pie charts are just a summary of that data. You can see the total in the right-hand side, and it just summarizes the data. That's all.
Can you give just a little bit of history? When was the resort tax started? Last 10 years?
No, we're 28 years in resort tax
Oh, okay.
right now.
And then how is it decided how much?
The city council ultimately decides.
Oh.
So, yeah, ultimately it's the city council. So we as a resort tax board make recommendations to the council, and the council decides.
And the thing that I will add is that they have to decide within the boundaries, the voters set what the resort tax can be
Yeah.
used for. So
Yeah, very
the voters
specific.
set the parameters, city council allocates within those parameters based on recommendations from the resort tax board.
Okay.
And the mayor.
process is up for review soon?
The
No.
budget will be in July,
Oh.
August.
How the funds get allocated,
20
the
years.
categories that they get allocated toward.
Oh, it goes to the voters generally when it expires. We did about 5 years ago, so it's another 15 years before it's
So
due.
it's a 20-year period of.
Yes.
And it can go to the voters sooner than that, but you also don't want to because you also have the possibility if they just say no. And we would be in big trouble.
You can ask them to change how it's spent before that 20 years is
The
up.
allocations.
Yes, without saying, do you want resort tax or not?
Right.
Yeah, so, but it's just, you have to really think hard about if you want to do that, because it does create a situation where, we only have so much resort tax, and the more you allow it to be spent on, the less money to go around.
But
for
that
their
would be
projects.
by voter ballot?
Yes,
Okay.
And
Changing the categories, but not whether you have resort tax or not. Changing the categories, it would require a vote.
Changing.
whether or not we have
Allocation
resort
percentage.
taxes every.
Well, I'll use an example because this might be relevant, and it will relevant to our thing. For example, currently, we cannot use resort tax money to support CART. If we wanted to use resort tax money to support CART, we would have to go out and ask for an amendment in order to add CART to that. We are going to talk about a survey in a bit that will add three categories, so I'll let us get there. We've talked a lot about this in the past, but we are looking at the possibility of expanding, that we are looking to try to get more public input on whether the public is interested in expanding the use of the resort tax funds to include a few other things.
Other things.
Yes, the primary one is CART.
Well, it wasn't CART, it was public transportation.
Okay, public transportation.
You couldn't
Just-
list
Yeah,
one
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, such as CART, yes. Public transportation, police
Police and fire.
Like operations.
operations, yeah,
Because right now it's just capital that we can spend it on for.
yeah. What's the third one?
Workforce housing.
Workforce housing.
Was the original, plan to say, for, you have categories for allocations, and was the original statute, or whatever it said, X% goes to this?
No, the city council ultimately, we recommend the city council decides.
Well, I see, which category gets what
That's
percentage
correct.
of the funds?
That's correct.
I see, okay.
Yeah, yeah, you get bought into history, right? You know, so it's hard to make big jumps one direction or the other, so you start to commit something, and in our budget, most of it currently is pretty committed based on history. So, I don't want to get too off the rails, so we make sure that we get to our Public Works Director, who I think is on the line, and for some reason, I'm not finding the email that he sent me, so, no.
It was at 4:03 PM today. You sent it to Tom@redlodgefire.com.
That's why I can't find it, I'm in the wrong email address. Thank you. All right. Mike, if you're able to talk, we'll pop in and just Mike, we'll provide this to the group, but Mike's got a summary. Do you want to go through it, Mike, or you want me to go through your summary?
I think, yeah, if you want to if you can post that overview that I emailed out and basically the email and let people see them. I can run through it as well, but I think having it up there would be good. Maybe the overview.
I'm reading the document right now, so.
And I've got it up.
All right. So basically from public works standpoint, I'll start out with what we had budgeted in 25, 26 and where we're at on that, on those funds right now. The back truck was delivered in August and paid for. So that was a big chunk. That was 523,000. We paid it off. We had split, some resort tax money with some water and some sewer money to get a twin axle dump truck. We budgeted 40,000 for that. We spent 35,000 of that. So there'll be a little bit coming back to resort tax on that. I don't think it'll really matter. We had budgeted $120,000 for a compact loader with attachments. We were able to purchase the loader for just under 80,000. And we're hoping to finish getting attachments. I believe we'll end up with 15,000 out of that 120 that will go back. The EDA street project, we budgeted $100,000 to cover what was estimated to be the cost of the project. We needed another 100,000 to cover it. The bids came in below what was estimated. The bid's been awarded. We'll start the project this spring. We're trying to utilize all that money with EDA grant money to add more streets to the project. I'm not sure if that's going to be successful. But if we don't get that money spent by the end of the fiscal year, then we will carry that over. Sidewalk and spending program, we budgeted $50,000. That program just starting, but I'm assuming that by the end of June, all those funds will be utilized. There was a street project on Grant to do a block of new pavement in the 2025 budget. We will conduct that work this spring, and so that those funds will also be utilized. Generally, overall in the streets budget, everything's riding pretty good right now. I don't expect any great increases in that budget. The parks budget, which is part of resort tax, we budget $80,000 for the Pride Park improvements. That money will get spent, I'm hoping, before the end of the fiscal year. But if conditions and contractor availability, we may carry it over to fall. I believe, I think some numbers got changed after the last time I was at the resort tax meeting and before council. I think there was 85,000 budget and what's kind of been called the Parks Project budget line.
Yeah. It was 100, Mike.
It was 100, yeah. You guys just bumped. I wasn't aware of that, but anyway, I think right now we don't have a whole lot spent out of that. I'm thinking maybe we'll have 30 go out before the end of the year. Another option for those funds could be, I think we could use them for a comprehensive parks plan, which has been talked about, and there's a new trail that's been talked about, and I think those could fit into that budget line, and it's already budgeted, so that would make it, that would kind of make it the easy button. Generally, the parks budget is sitting pretty good, other than we have one line item that we're gonna go over on, and that's basically Willie's gas and supplies, because he's out there doing Willie stuff, so we just need to bump that up, but it'll be like a couple $1,000. Looking forward for 2026, 27, Public Works would like to get a screen to work with the material. Right now, whenever we do projects, either street projects, sewer projects, water projects, stormwater projects, if we end up doing park projects, we end up hauling a lot of material off. We haul it all down to the sewer plant and we just kind of set it there. And because it's a mix of rocks and good material and everything else, we'd like to get a screen so we can start utilizing that material and bring it back to town rather than buying material. A used screen would be around $45,000. The other piece of equipment we're looking at, I had one of these in Shoto, and I know they have one in Laurel. Forsyth has one, Miles City has one, but just a 1-ton pickup with a sander on it. So in the afternoon, if things are slick, we can go sand the intersections downtown and not have to have the big trucks out when there's traffic and pedestrians and what have you. We have a truck in our fleet that is suitable to have that package put on it, and it's an in and out deal where we could just put it on the truck when we need it and take it off when we don't. I can get the whole thing set up for $35,000. So that's one of our requests. I think the sidewalk incentive program is going to be accepted well by the residents of Red Lodge and the businesses. So we'd like to refund that for $50,000. Parks projects, I think that's a valuable budget item for us to have in parks so that we can do maintenance, kind of leverage our money with some of the user groups for $85,000. The streets funds to pave additional streets. Specifically, this would be for like when we do projects for water, sewer, or stormwater, we're always operating under a grant for those. And the grant people are very particular because asphalt is expensive. They don't want to buy any more asphalt than they have to. So they only cover the trench with asphalt, but in a lot of places, we're tying into really bad asphalt. And if we had a line item in our streets budget where we could say, hey, while you're paving that 6-foot trench, we want to take out all this bad stuff over here, make the street better. It would give us a great ability to make better streets. I know the plan is to someday come through and do them all, but curb, gutter, and sidewalks very expensive, and it's we may never get there. So I feel like this is a cheap way to make our streets better while we're working in the street. We did use some street money in 2024 when FEMA came in and repaved and on like 13th Street. And originally it was going to be cut up kind of like Platt is now after the stormwater project. And we were able to kick in some additional funds and just pave quite a bit of that street, and it really made a difference. So that's kind of what this would look like in the real world, if you're trying to understand it. The last thing I put in there was just something for people to think about. The Brewery Hill project got declined for funding on the TA grant. And part of the reason we've been successful with water and sewer is a lot of times we pre-engineer, pre-design things and have a shovel-ready plan ready to go. And when the grants come up, if something comes up quick, like they used to, it gives us a great ability to capitalize on it. Also, if we have design done, it shows commitment. And I think it allows us to compete better. That might be something to think about if we're really committed to the Brewery Hill project, to invest in that design and have it on the shelf and then reapply for the TA grant in 27 and have that show that commitment. We might be able to get the money for that. And then the potential carryovers I have would be Pride Park if we don't get it done this spring, and that EDA street money if we don't get it billed out completely before the end of June.
Mike, do you have a feel on that Brewery Hill project, what the cost would be?
I think
not much you wouldn't have marked there, but
I do and I don't. I didn't want to put the number down there. So part of the issue with the reason why everything was so high on the feasibility study was DOT really makes you jump through a bunch of hoops in order to do it. I think that they're scared about our ability to jump through some of those hoops. So I think a design would help illustrate that we can. I think the cost of that would be, and I spoke with the engineer today about it. We really, I would rather have a conversation with MDOT and the engineer together before I say what that number is, but I'll throw out, it could be from $100,000 to $185,000, depending on what hoops DOT would want us to jump through.
all right.
And the other thing with doing that design ahead of time is like, especially that upper portion that goes down to where the crosswalk was going to be by Alpine Basin. We could phase it out, and that's a project that we could probably fit into and do ourselves, and that would again show commitment to a funding agency that we can do this, that this is going to happen. The other thing is we might learn that we can do this cheaper on our own by getting encroachment permits, and depending on what they require in the permit process, we might be able to delete a lot of costs by not jumping through all the DOT hoops for their money.
Mhm.
It's just a sidewalk. I mean, it really is just a sidewalk.
Trail. Just even that.
So,
Mike, yeah, thank you for all your work you put into this. This is exactly what we were looking for, and I think it's definitely really helpful, and it gives us some stuff to move forward with. Does anybody on the committee have questions for Mike?
That was pretty clear.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
oh, you bet.
thanks a lot.
Yeah, you bet. I'll stay online if you have any questions.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that works. That was very helpful. All right, future department head reports and resort tax requests.
I don't know that we have any other department heads. The only thing we have left is the office.
Yeah.
We've had legal, we've had police, I'm sorry, we've had police,
Mm-hmm. And
we've had
public works.
public works. There's a conversation probably with fire, but I think we've got a couple of other things before we get to that spot. That would be the only one
Okay.
that I see the potential.
I think admin is the only thing that they've been pulling out of resort tax is the software for the short-term rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really admin outside of that is not particularly allowed, so.
Yeah, that's the only thing that it is allowed.
Yeah.
We could, if you wanted to put, it's a month out, if you wanted to put fire on the agenda, we could see if we have some fire.
We might have a conversation about the next meeting too.
Yeah.
But, we'll confirm that. I know we have some folks from the tennis courts, if they want to give us an update and anything else you guys want to add.
Things are just going really well. We're doing the preliminary engineering design with the city's engineers, just to make feasibility, the soil, make sure that we're not going to spend too much. I think it's probably the overview to capacitate making that cold slag dependable.
Yep.
And how much concrete is that going to take and how much excavation is that going to take. So we're going to jump through that, and we'll have a nice design here in a couple of months that will show us that feasibility. So that'll be great. So
They're gonna firm up the cost
yeah, from up there,
information
yeah.
better for us.
Yeah.
And am I correct in that your request to us was for $200,000? Is
Yep.
that what we had in our
Yep.
preliminary?
We just wanted to stay in touch with what you guys were doing in the survey and what the city was still planning on, to make sure that we don't have to consider raising that funds otherwise.
Yes. Yep.
That would be
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah,
Because we're really close,
our estimate now is 850,000, and we've raised about 750,
but that's
including,
Including ours.
That
Yep.
including resort tax money.
So-
So,
Yep.
we know the
So-
process that needs to go through between now and then.
Yep. But you guys are on track.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's great. Anybody have questions for them?
No, keep up the good work.
All right.
You guys are doing great with your fundraising.
Yeah. All right. The next item, and I'm gonna just say this for Joy. Hopefully, this will not be an item very much longer. Before Joy says it. Is the survey. So, I do apologize. It took me a while to send that out to everybody. It took me like 10 minutes to do it once I did it. So that's even more embarrassing. But sometimes it's even hard to find 10 minutes. So, I do want to talk about, the survey and just, I'll run through it. Chris did a good job of, sending me an email with, some feedback, on this, and I will share again here, and we can just run through this. It just takes me a second to get on to this. The broadcast. So, how do I fix that quote thing? So hopefully, I apologize, it's a little challenging for me to run this survey on my iPad,
There's
so.
just 2 little typos on this, and then.
Yep. So do you want, I mean, if there's just 2 little typos, will you just send those to me?
Yep, I can.
Or will you
now-
just make them? Because you
Well,
can.
Yeah, I forgot. I can go in and do it. I just had forgotten my password, and before I messed around with it, I was
Okay,
like,
all right.
I
Okay.
better make sure he does. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think if they're typos, you can do them. I did go through and make, some updates on this, and so, I might see if I can, do this. And this is not the right one, so I'm gonna start over here for a second.
Which explains the quote you thought you had.
Yes, I did. So I apologize. I thought I had this fixed. The way I log into this, it doesn't do it correctly on my iPad. It's part of the problem, so I have to do it in a special way. If this works. All right, I'll try to do this so we can see here. All right, so this, I believe, is the fixed version. And so if you see, I know it's going to be hard to go through, like, especially in these bigger ones, to go through and note some typos, but if we find them, we can make that. So basically, we would start out with this explanation of the resort tax, what it is, why it's, how it works. And it's a little bit complicated for people, but I think it's important to include it there. Any questions or comments on that?
No.
Then I have made this adjustment based on this was not in the draft that you got, but based on our last conversation at the meeting, to change it to just please check all apply. I live in the city of Red Lodge. I live near Red Lodge, but not within the city. I am a Red Lodge property owner. I am a business owner in Red Lodge. I collect resort tax. I am a frequent visitor to Red Lodge. So they can mix and match that, and we can get some demographic information without having
2 questions.
and the ones that were very confusing. So does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this question everybody likes, do you believe North Tech has a positive impact on the community over the past 5 years? And then if you could use the resort tax funds to improve one thing or service in Red Lodge, what would it be? And then this will be a partial submittal point, so we will collect basically data. Prior to that, we'll know that they didn't finish the survey, but it will actually still collect the data. So we'll be able to see that for people who drop off. So if people get a little bit into it and then they drop off, we'll have, there's going to be a debate about how you produce that data, because sometimes that means people will take the survey multiple times and some of that kind of thing. So, and this is our question list. How would you prioritize the use of resort tax funds for operating expenses for street maintenance and snow plowing? Large capital items for public works, dump trucks, road graders, heavy equipment. Uh-oh, this is what happens with my iPad. It moves the questions around.
That's right.
Large capital improvements to park facilities, pool, pickleball, ice skating, tennis, baseball bathrooms, etc. How would you prioritize use of resort tax funds for park and trail improvements and maintenance? Capital, I'll just put all the same thing. Capital items for police protection, police cars, rifles, bullets, bulletproof vests, etc. Downtown infrastructure improving, making downtown more friendly for locals and visitors. And then for the following questions, we are trying to determine if we should expand the use of resort tax funds to items that are currently not allowed under the resort tax ordinance. Currently, operational costs such as salaries and supplies are only allowed for maintenance related to streets, alleys, trails, parks, recreational facilities, and city beautification expenditures. Any expansion in the use of resort tax funds would limit the ability to make long-term capital improvements and would require a vote of the citizens. Is that clear? So would you support a vote to expand the use of resort tax funds for any of the following, knowing it will take funds away from projects currently allowed under resort tax ordinance? Workforce housing, police officer salaries and police operating expenses, and public transportation like cars. So this was kind of the key one we wanted to make sure that the committee was happy with.
Works for me.
Yeah.
What if you said expand the categories? That almost sounds like you're gonna increase collecting taxes. To me, I don't know. Expand the use. It's not, maybe expand the categories isn't the right word.
Expand the use of
How about,
resort tax collected for something.
Yeah,
or
the
way.
existing
how about expand the
collection or
ability
something like
to
that?
use resort tax funds?
That, just that word expand to me triggers.
Modify the
trigger
use.
people. I don't know. Maybe it's funny.
I do understand what you're saying.
Modify is a good word.
Change the use.
What's that, just change?
It's not change, it would be
Is it
add.
adding?
To add.
Yeah,
Support a vote to add
to add.
the ability to use. How about that?
Well, if you explained it in terms of diluting the effectiveness or
Yeah.
the amount of money that could go to the other already approved categories with that.
It's followed in there.
Yeah.
It says it would take funds away from the project.
Okay.
Would you support
Yeah.
a vote to
That's all.
add?
Actually, just with a vote to use resort tax, just get rid of all of that in there, knowing that.
Yeah.
Would you support a vote to use resort tax to fund any of the
Yes.
following, knowing it would take away? You don't even
Okay.
have to have any.
Yeah,
All right.
don't put add or expand or anything like that.
Do we want to add a separate category just for fire? Because right now we could use resort tax for fire capital, but we can't use it to help pay for
Operations of fire. Honestly,
Well, we
our
developed,
bigger expenses are capital,
Okay.
and so I don't know, I mean,
It
put
was
my
just,
fire chief hat on, I think, I mean, what I think right now, if we had capital for fire, that would be just a bit too high.
okay.
I
Don't
don't,
you have an of between use and resort that you can get rid of?
I was just thinking, we're primarily paying it out as a general fund.
yeah,
and
do you want to, I mean, we could add that.
Be able to use resort
Fire
tax.
department operational expenses,
well, we added these three because they were things that we've been asked.
yeah.
We haven't.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
think,
putting my admin hat on
less
and
complicated is better.
Okay.
I mean, in the end, if it looks like we're gonna do it, well, you can, we're not limited to the
Right.
vote just based on the survey.
Right.
So if over time you think that is more appropriate, and we do decide to go to a vote, okay?
And I think that's the biggest thing we need to remember is like this survey is going to end up being qualitative, not quantitative, to your point, like, because we can't prevent people from taking it several times or when people, but at least
Yeah.
give us an idea, again, like if everyone's like, no, I don't want to have a vote again on this, then we know that.
Then we know, yes,
we
that
know that
becomes
we're not
pretty
going
clear.
to,
Yeah, right, yeah.
Right.
So then, I don't know how you feel about this. To help with survey integrity, please let us know your name. We will not use this information to contact you. I don't know if that's too much or,
Personally, I like it.
I like it too. It adds accountability.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I would sign
Yeah.
every survey I do. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put or have them put down their
And
email
it's
address.
not gonna, this isn't gonna be a required question, so if they
Yeah.
don't put anything, we'll still
Right.
log it, but you might be able to look at the people who put their names and be able to, say people who,
Filled out the Bear Aware one, and they asked for your email address.
yeah.
Obviously I put, no, we don't feed the animals because they're, it is against the law. Did you know it's against the law?
And then, yes, I feed the animals, here's my email address.
Right.
Please send the fine.
can you go back to the slide just before your 3 questions?
This one?
We were trying to determine if we should, so, expand the use of resort tax that are currently not allowed under currently operational costs such as salary supplies are only allowed. I'm looking at that last paragraph and kind of, in that last paragraph, we cleaned up to eliminate the same, although that is an expansion of the use,
Yeah.
would limit the ability to make long-term. First off, I would reverse it. I would start out, an expansion of the use of resort tax would require a vote of the citizens. I would put that first. And then say, and, you know, something that basically says you're taking it away from other sources. Just make it very clear that it's,
Not an endless supply of
Yeah.
things.
Even though-
I would lead that with requires a vote of the, and could mean less available for other uses already existing or something like that.
Other investments or something like that.
Because this just kind of hones in on capital improvements, and that's not the only place. It could end up being sort of someplace else too.
I would just say existing expenses.
Yeah, existing uses of the resort tax.
You're done with that. Do you have a question?
What's that? Oh, go ahead, Dave.
I know anytime there's a survey, there's a danger that people are gonna skim over, they're not gonna read most of the stuff. But it seems to me that one of the issues that's come up in recent months is not enough people know when this whole thing was set up, what are those categories that the money can be used for? And you do address that in that opening slide, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wonder if, you know, a little bit more history that says at the time we okayed the resort tax, these were the things that were chosen by our leadership to use the money for. And then at the end, if you want to have that category at the end, do you think we could expand that to include these kinds of things so that people know what's that compared to? Like, what can it be spent on? What can't it be spent on? I think there's not enough knowledge by the general community of where that ever got decided and of what it could be spent on.
I would just recommend that if we were gonna go into that level of detail, that if there's a thing on our existing website that talks about that we just have a link saying for more information about the history of the resort tax, we could link to it, because the more you put up front before you get to the questions, the more people are gonna opt out before they even start answering them.
I agree. I just think there's an element here that needs to be public education for this whole process so that we don't get into this kind of situation again. People are just, they're not aware of how you guys make some of these decisions. So in other words, a link from this to the A, B, and C list of things that the 3% can go to and the 1% can go to and so forth, that's on the website.
And I like the idea of having some history of how it came to how it is now.
And I'm thinking the ballot language was short enough, if you could add one slide that just has the actual ballot language that was approved, that's like half the size of this slide.
I think we could make we need to do a presentation to the council, because we do that as part of the budget. And, you know, there's a little bit of a history in that presentation. And so maybe what we do is we just do a little more history in that presentation to the council. So again, another opportunity to present to the public. And then we can publish that presentation so that then those slides would be available for people to see.
Right. I mean, part of this is, you know, obviously I have a bias in transportation because I'm aware that other resort communities that do collect resort taxes do use these monies for things like workforce housing, because no one can afford to live there. And that's very important to the tourism, industry, which draws in more of these taxes. But I think that, just lost my train of thought. I do think that, people would need help understanding a little bit better what the history of this all is.
And we did, I mean, just so you know, I mean, we did do, we did surveys, we did public meetings about it, and then we did a vote that passed it. So there was, there were multiple education things, and then there was a vote that passed that approved what the information that we got from the people. So there was, but that was, at this point now, it's 7 years ago. Yeah,
It was 2020.
2020, so 6 years ago.
So
Yeah.
there is, out under resort tax on the city website, there's frequently asked questions, and one of those questions are, what are the funds used for? And it spells out exactly, 95% of the 3% resort tax revenue must be utilized for capital improvements to streets, alleys, water, sewer, stormwater, emergency services, trails, parks, recreational facilities, city beautification, debt repayment, and operational and maintenance costs related to streets, alleys, urban port. I mean, that's right off of.
Yeah, that's the ordinance.
That's the ordinance.
Yeah.
So
A link to that would be good.
I think if we just link to that, and then people, if they want to get more information, it's there. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't
Yeah.
make them drink. So,
Because, I mean, even 7 years ago, workforce housing wasn't an issue in our community.
No, it was less of an issue.
Less of an issue when resort tax was set up.
But it was a survey item and a discussion item, and it was pretty soundly rejected. So we did have that conversation, and the information that we got back was that was not a priority. So it wasn't like it wasn't discussed. It was absolutely discussed as an option. Now, it might be a different priority today than it was then. So that's a piece, but it was a discussion item. It wasn't like it was ignored. It was a survey item. It was discussed at the public meeting, and it was part of that conversation. And we felt like, obviously there were some folks who thought it was a good idea, but overall, that most folks felt that was not where they wanted to see the dollars go. They wanted to see it go to specific projects in town that they could touch. And there was a big part about things like pools and tennis courts and, much to dismay, ice rinks and those kinds of items that provided it, as well as seeing a reduction without not putting so much money towards water and sewer that got buried underground. Because that was, in the first 20 years, we spent a lot of money on water and sewer, and there was really a push to say, we don't want to neglect water and sewer, but we've invested a lot in that, and it's a little bit time for the ratepayers to continue that and not have resort tax continue the water and sewer piece. So that was and then there was another big push, which was to say, operationally, we want to have money we want to continue with parks improvements, and we want to have money to maintain those improvements in the parks. We want to see things like playgrounds and pools, and we want money to make sure they stay maintained so we don't build a playground and then watch it deteriorate over the next 20 years and then have to use capital improvements to replace it because we didn't take care of it. And then the other thing is that we did this public meeting in the winter, and everybody thought snow plowing was important. It snowed that year, unlike this year, but everybody thought, because prior we could buy a snowplow truck, but we couldn't pay the snowplow operator. So that, we have a position, you heard Mike talk about it, that park maintenance in the summer, snow plowing in streets and, public works stuff in the winter, and that's a balance. So we've provided a position that they can use to do that. So we've seen a big improvement there, and I'll come back to the survey, and then I'll show one more thing. I don't want to take up too much of our time, so I do want to come back to this. And Chris, you in this last thing, we had rejected. I have to remember where I get to here. Sorry. we had rejected I grabbed it wrong. It goes, so we had rejected this idea.
Guys,
And you said you liked this, so I just want to come back to this conversation, because we could do both. We could leave those questions and then throw this at the end, which you get a scale on 1 to 5, but then this literally gets you a ranking. But I don't know if it's too many questions.
It's a lot. I mean, because like I originally built this, you know, so
Yeah.
you could kind of see that, and everybody thought it was too much. So,
Yep.
especially if you're taking it on your phone, I think it becomes hard.
Well, what if everybody puts 5 on everything?
Well, this you have to.
And
but
it'll force you to rank it, though.
You have to rank
Oh,
it.
okay.
You can grab them and move them,
Oh,
but you have to rank.
okay. The little drop-down arrow isn't like.
No, you can do the drop-down arrow to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 47. Whatever.
I'm not a huge fan of it, just.
Yeah, and I think that's why we went back and did the scale on the other big buckets
Yep.
to kind of get rid of this.
Chris,
Yeah,
you
we
want to make an argument?
No, I agree. It would be a little bit unwieldy at the end, and especially on a phone. I didn't really think about that, but I think we will still be able to take all of those questions, and we'll get the same result by having, if we have a numerical quality for strongly.
Every one of these things is. Yeah.
Yep.
Those things by what their average score is. So I'm fine taking it out. Thank you.
I had to go back and I had deleted it, so I had to go back and save a version. So now I have copies, so that's why that is. All right. So next question. When do we want to do this survey? Are we close enough to move forward with it and get it out?
Please, I hope so.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. We'll make some final evidence. I'll work with, I'm going to let Joy make any final edits that need to happen so that it actually gets done, and she can get logged in, and then we will push this survey out.
Okay.
So that we can get it, we'll try to have a deadline maybe before our next meeting, even if that's possible.
Will you also have this on paper?
No, we will not.
Because
Because it's just managed, so someone would have to, we did it on paper, then someone would have to come in and enter it into the computer system, so.
And we can't use resort tax to pay them to do
No.
that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a simple tool, right? Is the reason it wouldn't be on paper.
Does this automatically do a QR code, or we can just make one?
We can make a QR code to it, yeah.
I feel like that'd be good.
Yep. I mean, and we can extend the time too if we're worried about it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just how to get it out there, it'll be on the city's website, we'll announce
City
it at
website.
city council. I can share it all over,
Yeah, we can send it out to mail lists that we have.
Yeah, the email, the city.
Oh, the city Google group would be a really good way to push it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And notices at the post office, print ones that have
That-
either the QR.
Yeah, so if
code
we could do that, a QR code.
and the senior center, because
Yep.
they're setting up a computer system over there with various,
Oh, good.
according to somebody I talked to this morning who's going for a grant for, computers. So, I mean, I think that the more you can get it out there on paper notices,
Yeah.
the more people will know about it.
And then I think one of the questions we did last time, maybe we want to see the survey results, but then we may want to do a public meeting to get personal feedback from people that they can show up to and give us. Basically what we did last time, which I thought worked very well, is we presented the results of the survey and then got feedback from the audience if they basically find out if it matched the results of the survey.
That works.
Okay. Any other questions or comments there?
I'm excited to have it out and done.
Mhm.
Yeah, or at least,
Tim, by the next meeting, were you saying have a date or have it open and closed before the next meeting?
No.
No, I think we could have it published, like get it ready and be ready to publish by the next meeting, because,
Okay.
then we can get,
Get
Yeah.
all the information together and have
Yeah.
it published by the next meeting. I like that idea. All right, I got one other thing here I'll show that relates to this a little bit, and it's just, you know, has to do with, kind of interesting. Oh, I'm not sure.
While you're doing that, Tom, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Jody said that you will have the AI version of the meeting minutes, or does that?
Yeah, it's a summary. I sent out, and I sent out what it looks like to everyone, including you, from our last meeting. And so you, as the secretary, can take that summary and just put it on our letterhead, the city letterhead, and add the date, and, you know, submit that if you like to everyone, and we can decide if you can decide if it's accurate or not. Sometimes they have some stuff in there, like our tasks, or what do they call them?
Oh yeah, next steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
The resort tax summary, they have in there next steps, and sometimes those aren't like 100% accurate. They assign stuff to just random people just because their name was mentioned. Like in admin, we actually deleted off those next steps because it was not accurate on what people were supposed to be doing. But I guess that would be, you know, up to, or you can correct them if you know.
Or you can just use your notes if you don't want to use the error.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
I used my notes for the last meeting, but it would sure be nice to use AI if we can. Is there a good example of a hybrid that some committee is doing that you're aware of, Jody, since you're on so many meetings or so many committees?
Well, we're just using this summary, and we just review it at the beginning of the meeting, and we're just like, you know, at our last admin meeting, we took out next steps because we just need a summary of the meeting. We didn't need the next steps, and like I say, they were assigning weird things to people that weren't even at the meeting.
So Chris, at the next meeting, let's actually bring up the summary for this meeting, and then we can review it and just make sure we're okay with what it says.
Sounds good.
All right, last thing, I thought this is just interesting. I was looking at the resort tax data and just doing some projections about where we think resort tax data may go over the next few years. A couple of pieces of information. So since 2020, we've actually had a 9.22% increase in resort tax, which is pretty impressive. Obviously, you know, that just shows expansion and inflation and a bunch of stuff, but it shows the resort tax in 10 years to be on track for $5 million a year, a little $4.5 million a year if we continued with that. I would say that's overly ambitious, but I will also say when we projected what our resort tax revenue would be the last time, we have far exceeded what those projections were. So, and then I also did it just on a linear projection. This is using AI, by the way, for anybody who's just to make that note. And it shows that our annual increase has been about $145,000 a year. So this is more realistic, and it shows being at about $3.5 million in 10 years. Our average, when we go and look at the entire, it was 4.1%. And the reason I don't have a graph for that is I ran out of time. So I will have that next time for you that shows if we project out what 4.1%. But the point being is that you know, showing showing that projection and looking at things that help to increase resort tax are beneficial, because then we can not only see the increases in resort tax, we see the associated increases in employment, as well as the increase in revenue into the city. So
we did have some significant inflation after COVID.
Yeah. So there's, like I said, so when I go back prior to that, it's about 4%. So
probably more stable.
Yeah.
It looks like you're going to put property tax collections on.
Oh, I actually do. I can show that. We did this a little while ago, but I'll bring this back. Stop broadcasting. And this is in, just for anybody who needs to see it, this is in the previous resort tax presentation. But this is resort tax compared to property taxes. And it really, this is a great graph that shows that. So it shows that up to 2020, we spent about, the city received about the same amount of money in resort taxes as it did in property taxes. And that increase basically tracked. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so two things happened in 2020. One is we added another 1%. So then that happened, and then we also saw significant increases in business in the community, as well as inflation, in the services that we charge, right? And so an exponential growth. And you can see, just for folks who maybe don't fully, the way property tax works can sometimes be misleading. The city is limited to property tax. They get the amount of money that they collected in the previous year, plus 1/2 the rate of inflation, plus new development. So the amount that even when property values go up, the amount of property tax you pay does not go up with those values. That has changed in this year in the way that the property taxes are assessed and valuated. For example, on my residential properties, we saw a 17% reduction in property taxes. On my commercial properties, we saw a 30% increase in property taxes. So you can't get a 17% reduction unless you pay for it with something else. So what we did is we shifted, in Red Lodge, our property taxes got shifted from residential to commercial, is what happened. So that reduction came from an increase in commercial as a general rule. The way the law is designed is this next year, that switch is going to reduce from residential and commercial as long as the residential is primarily occupied. If it's a second home, you're going to see about a double in the amount of property taxes that you see. So, and this is city taxes that we're talking about. There are other taxes that affect differently. So, any comments or questions on that? But it does show the value of resort tax and what resort tax does for our community. Overall, you can see that we've had very, very little. The city has seen very little increase in the amount of property taxes, even when you will go back to 2010 to 2025, and just for hard numbers in property tax collection, where's my date here? Some of these are some estimates, but in 2013 it was 860, 2014 was 864, and in 2025 it was 889. So there's,
that's property tax?
That is property tax revenue that the city receives.
So not a lot of variation.
So despite property values and everything going up, and some of this is due to the resort tax, because as the resort tax goes up, there's two things that are happening with resort tax, and I think this is really important. The first is 5% goes to property tax reduction. That is another thing that we were told that the last thing is we don't want property tax reduction, we want services. We want things into the community. And everyone was very clear on that. Again, not unanimous, but there was a big point. And then, so what happens is that 5% still reduces property tax value. Then the other thing is that the resort tax is paying for things that the city would have to increase property taxes in order to pay for if we didn't do it. There's another, and this is a huge one because it doesn't show up in your property tax world. Almost $10 million in water and sewer infrastructure that would have had to have been on water and sewer bills. Right, so that wouldn't show up in the property tax world, but resort taxes contributed $10 million to water and sewer infrastructure that, we're not that big a community. $10 million would be very impactful in water and sewer. So resort tax really has moved a lot of things to reduce costs for the people who live here.
Is that 5% of the 3%?
It's 5% of the 3%, not.
Ken,
is it possible that that could be varied up or down 5% to 3% or 5% to 10%?
Not down.
No, it cannot go down. 5% is the minimum.
But it could go up
It
if the
could.
voters so choose.
That's the voters so choose. And it was higher before.
It was like,
It was 15%, and so again, that's one of the reasons we have so much more money to work with for things like plowing and those kinds of things, is because
There's not as much property tax relief.
not as much property tax relief, but there is property tax relief because we're spending it on things. If we didn't have
Right.
property tax relief, we'd have
Get
to.
charged somewhere else.
You have, yes, exactly. And so all of that comes together to be, I don't know what the right word is, to make sure that, you know, that it all comes together into the same bucket.
There are
essentially.
many shells that are out there, and they're all being moved around.
That is
with
correct.
different amounts
Yes, that's
underneath.
it's a good way to describe it, yep. Okay. Any questions there? So that's a really big, it's an important part of why it's, you know, from a business, and why we continue to do things that, we also invest in things that help to improve resort tax, and, you know, some of the downtown infrastructure and some of that kind of stuff becomes very important. Okay?
Is there any, how much money is unspent at this point in time in resort tax coffers?
$2 million.
But a lot of it's budgeted.
It's budgeted.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's all,
It's
it rotates through.
It's
but
allocated.
We don't have a slush fund.
No slush
there is-
fund.
but there is in actual cash right now in the fund is $2 million.
And part of that is I want to make sure that we have a reserve so that if suddenly resort tax tanks, it's not, I don't want to be living paycheck to paycheck, as it were, on the city reserve tax.
All right, before we, any other public comments?
Yeah, I know we're short on time. Going to the budget, spreadsheet that you had in the last meeting that was being projected.
Yeah. And
I've requested this of Dave and the screen. To me, it kind of seems like, since those are hard numbers, they're numbers that this committee will make a decision on and recommendation to the council for voting on, that particular document ought to be something that's, whatever state it's in, put up on the city's website as part of a packet, so to speak, for this committee, so we can kind of see the percentages of where possibly money could go, you know,
Yeah,
allocated to
I don't,
different projects.
so I did, you know, that was just my, you know,
I know.
kind of a note thing,
I know.
so I did give that to Dave, that piece. You know, what we are doing right now is some of the reluctance to kind of post it too publicly before it's, you know, it's a work in progress.
I understand.
And so what happens is, you know, we just want it not to confuse people, because like, oh, there was money for this, and now that money's not, and that's, that might think it's finalized. So this, really, what that was is that's just the notes of what people have.
But by the same token, as the council goes through and looks at the budget, as they're discussing the bigger general budget, those are not hard numbers at the point, you know, where.
They don't see any of this until we transmit it to them.
I got that, but I'm talking about the big general budget.
Yeah.
There's discussion of that going on, you know, for some number of city council meetings, am I wrong?
Yeah,
No.
well, the initial budget will go out about May, and then we just kind of keep that posted every month as we
Right,
change.
so-
Yeah, and
By the
we
same
talk
token-
about, we talk about that in our admin and finance committee.
Mhm.
And the actual budget itself is not presented to the entire council until we'll have a discussion on it. And then, we may have two discussions on it, but we really only have one discussion and a vote for the whole council. It's mainly admin and finance that discusses the budget.
And I don't have any problem pushing it out there. I mean, it's not, there's no secret in it, so
It's no more confusing
Yeah.
than looking at the expenditure side of things.
yeah.
Right? And I think that it's important that everybody in the community that has a concern, one way or the other, about how things are being divvied up, they ought to see it in process. And
Yeah.
it could, you know, there could be an explainer at the top that says, this is in flux, this is in process, these are.
Yeah, we can do that. And I think one of our assumptions was that is all available, all the discussion and the information is all available online. So that information is available, and
It's hard to make screen grabs though of.
Well, but I mean, but some of that is that it's available in discussion, so that
Yeah,
then it's not taken out of context, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing, if you have to watch the video to see it, then you get the conversation part.
You get the context.
I mean, we can try and build that in a way that makes a little bit more sense. It's just not what we've done, just not what we've done in the past.
It is public monies being discussed in a public forum, right? And public decisions will be made about that. A recommendation from this committee and then voted on when it's in the bigger budget. So I just think it ought to be part of what you get to see before each resort tax committee meeting.
I think we can publish it with
Yeah, whatever we've got, like,
Yeah,
just get the disclaimers on it.
yeah, we just have to get, that's all we have to do. Yeah,
Well-
that's not a big deal. Yeah.
And what people have to realize is that right now, as you saw with Public Works, we're taking the ask.
I
you know.
got it, yeah.
And so right now, I do believe our resort tax budget is over significantly.
Significantly
So,
over, yeah.
so some of those things will either
So
be cut back or they're gonna go away.
Different allocations, or there might
Yeah,
be different
exactly.
budget line items.
And my main concern has always been, people will grab that and they'll like going, oh my God, you're spending this much on this, or
Right.
you're spending this much on
Well, and
this, or
that,
they'll be
and that
excited,
goes
we're
to my other
spending,
concern.
we're spending this much, yay, and then it's not there.
The 12% to 13% that I saw on that last spreadsheet, you know, for the ice rink. And I think it's the concern of a lot of people, how much those numbers related to or compared against the other budgeted items in capital expenditures.
Yeah.
And it was a big topic of discussion, and I think that it's good to have the information out there so that people can be knowledgeable as things go on in the whole budget discussion, resort tax budget discussion goes on.
Yeah.
So we.
And you know, it's a lot of process, right? Like, you know, we basically spend a year to come up with the numbers, right, that then get submitted to the council. And then the council spends 2 sessions, I think.
Well, admin and finance spends probably 2 months reviewing it.
Yeah.
And then it's a discussion item for all of council.
Right.
And during that whole time, it's still in flux until the final budget
Right.
hits council.
Yeah.
But.
And we love people showing up and giving input. I mean, that's how we make decisions. I mean, our whole purpose is to get community input and to, you know, that's what we do. That's why we're here.
And I will say that, just because something is budgeted does not mean it won't be spent, but it has to be budgeted in order to spend it. So,
Right.
so, you know, and we will budget high on our things for our resort tax spending, but if we don't make that resort tax, it won't be spent either, so.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
And then we go back on the Public Works review. What is the category for EDA 3?
So that is it's an economic development grant that was to improve the streets associated, basically, I don't know if you want to explain it better with it. The streets are on the north end of town. It does include streets in your neighborhood.
Is it the curb and gutter?
And it's curb and gutter that goes along with some of the stormwater. So this is basically improving stormwater. So that's why there's 1% resort tax money that helped underneath the EDA grant, and then that's why we're putting some resort tax money in to be able to make sure that this grant money is used, that we are able to complete the project when we're done.
And in order to take advantage of that money, we had to have our co-pay or our percentage match that's in it. So that's what we're using reserve.
And that's the EDA, this thing that Steve's talking about is what's financing the curbs and gutters around the
Correct.
block.
Yeah, and then the resort tax is paying our portion, our match to make it work.
Yes.
We'll give you $3 million if you can come up with.
But this is obviously a continuing, there's allotments each year.
No, it's just a project that takes several years to complete. So we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years at this point, and it's not done yet, so.
Because there's 50,000, suggested at 25, 26, but then in the 26, 27, there's another allotment of 100.
That's because we weren't sure where that would become needed.
Okay, so that's kind of, just a holding place.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because 100,000 will finish the project?
We don't know the answer to that question, I don't think.
I
I don't think Mike's still on, but,
Well, the 100,000 that he added there is, well, when they come in and say, we'll pay for this, what we do is we pave the street, so the street looks good rather than having 3 more ditches in it.
It's to address the rotten asphalt that's on either side of the
Right.
trench that they
It's
just
to make
put the
it,
new
it's to
asphalt.
make it look like a street rather than this year's patch and last year's patch and the years before that patch. And 13th is a really good example of that, to drive down that, because they were like, we've got this, let's just fill in between them and have a solid
But
street.
the curb and gutter is, in our part of the town, is part of that.
Part of the grant.
And
Yeah.
it's towards the high school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's mainly over by the high school and stuff, where they did the stormwater,
Yeah.
the first phase of the stormwater.
and I know we were, I don't remember, we were trying to get sidewalk all the way to the high school, I think that's part of it.
We are doing sidewalk all the way up to the high school.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
So moved.